Alright, welcome everybody to the first video of hopefully many more to come. Thank you for liking the page. Just going to give you a brief overview this evening on some of the things I've covered so far. As far as your basic setup, I know a lot of lakes and ponds are still ice covered beginning of March, which is a little unusual, but hopefully all that'll thaw off and we can get out on the water fairly quickly. Show you a couple things. There's 4 things you will always find on my boat. And pretty much if I go fishing, I'll try and get at least 1 or 2 of these things to bring with me. The first being a pair of trauma shears. These are a very heavy duty set of scissors. Sharp as a knife, very strong. These will actually cut through a penny. But since this is my last good pair, we're going to forego that this evening. I always carry a multi-tool. You don't have to be this fancy. A pair of needle nose pliers will suffice. A regular pair of scissors are handy to keep around. And lastly, a set of line clippers. A lot of guys will carry just your basic nail clippers. This is a new product that I'll be carrying this year. Made by Ardent. It's called the Rigger. It's kind of a little combi tool. Also comes with a pair of line clippers, which is the fingernail clippers. Keep it nice and handy. It comes with the little rope necklace here, or if you don't like it around the necklace part around your neck, it also comes with a little belt clip. Inserted in the side is a little sharpening stone to keep your hook sharp, and down here at the bottom is a little bit of a section of razor blade in there to that will cut those braided lines, those heavier duty lines. Always nice to have on hand. Starting with a brief overview of a rod. This is just a little 2-foot ice rod that my daughter won in a contest a couple years ago, so I do have an excuse to own a pink rod. Starting down here at the bottom, we have the handle. This is made out of black foam. Your reel seat, where the reel attaches to the rod. The blank, and your eyelets or guides. This one has 3, and of course a tip. Now pulling this out of the package or what have you, usually your line isn't threaded, so you just take the running end of the line, which is the one farthest away from the reel, and just run that through the center of your eyelets. And give yourself a couple feet just for ease of working. So we discussed a live bait setup and an artificial bait setup for that beginning angler. And we'll start with the live. I have my handy dandy box here that I take with me. Usually holds all my crappie stuff. I also will take this one if we take the kids down to go fish off the bank somewhere and try and catch some bluegill. So we'll start off. We have the 1/0 gold Aberdeen hook. This is kind of just your basic all around live bait hook. It's good for worms and or minnows and or corn. That is one bait that's often overlooked that bluegill actually love. So what we're going to do is you have the hook, the eyelet of the hook. You're going to take your running end, and either side, it doesn't matter, just bring it through one side of that eyelet. You're going to bring it out. I like to keep about 10-11 inches of running line there. And you're going to take that same running end and go back through the eyelet the opposite way of what you came the first time. So in your left forefinger and thumb, pinch that running end with the static end here and kind of pull tight, and you're going to have a loop, and I like to hook that loop around my pinky finger. Just takes whatever you feel comfortable with after a little bit of practice. So once you have that in your hand, you're just going to take that whole setup and make it just one simple overhand knot, just like you do when you start tying your shoe. So you'll have that round knot in the middle, And then you'll also come back with that loop. That loop, just take and spread apart with your fingers, grab either that jig head or the hook and bring it back through. And with your left hand, pull all that tight. And you have the Palomar knot. With your leftover here, you'll have a couple inch left over of that running end. You just take your handy dandy line clippers. You'll get fairly close, about 1/8 of an inch away, and just trim that off. Now, fishing close to the bank, you don't have to go very deep. I recommend 12 to 18 inches to start off with. You can always expand out from there. So I prefer the pear-shaped bobber. This is a weighted version. If you can see the silver part down here, that's actually a weight. Keeps that bobber upright and also gives a little bit weight at the bottom, so it's a little bit easier for that fish to pull it down and get that bobber to sink, so you can detect those light bites. So on this particular bobber, I say there are two plungers, the top plunger and bottom plunger. All you have to do is just take your index finger, put it squarely over that top plunger, push down, and you'll get that exposed hook. All you have to do is set your line across through that opening and let go. Now, with only you setting your line through there, top and bottom, this is going to be fairly easy to move back and forth. So it's easier to put your thumb this time on that bottom plunger and cover up that bottom hook so it doesn't go anywhere, and take 1 or 2 fingers on the edge, depress that top plunger, and this is where I said I like to wrap my line twice through there. That way that you're sure that bobber isn't going to go anywhere. So 12 to 18 inches. We're going to go right about in the middle, and we're going to take our split shot weight. Now, I know on the page I recommended a size 7. There's a whole different bunch of sizes and weights out there. Ideally, when I set this up, I'm looking for just enough weight to keep that bobber afloat. You get those small fish, the finicky fish, you have the light biting fish. The heavier that you can keep your setup and keep it afloat, the easier and less weight it's going to take to dip that underneath the water. Going to catch a lot more fish doing that, and when you're catching more fish, especially with the kids, it makes for a funner time, and that's the goal. So about halfway between that eyelet of the hook and the bobber, we've got our split shot. This is a removable kind. There's 2 types: removable, non-removable. The removable have the wings. You just kind of give those a pinch. Opens up like Pac-Man, if you're old enough to remember Pac-Man. So you're just going to take the mouth of that, set your line in there. I kind of bring it down on both sides. Get just a nice bow in the line there. Bring your hook and your bobber even. Just give it a little squeeze with your fingers. Depending on the weight, the size, usually it'll stay where it is. If you give it a good pinch with your fingers, I prefer to come back with either your needle nose or your multi-tool and just give it a little squeeze. Just don't be too rough that you can squeeze it a little too hard and nick your line. So that's your basic live bait setup: bobber, weight, and hook. So to conserve time, we're just going to remove this split shot. Throw it back in for later. I'm going to cut off my hook. And I'm going to move into the artificial setup. Since you're watching my video, I will show you my tried and true crappie bait for Mark Twain Lake. It also works well for Lake of the Ozarks. This is just your basic little crappie, 1-inch crappie tube. This is a Little Hustler brand. Blue body with a chartreuse skirt. For some reason, actually, absolutely drives those fish nuts at both lakes. I do fairly well each year with it. Tube bait is hollow through the center. So what I prefer to use is a 1/16 ounce, they call it the tube jig head, leaded weighted jig head, eyelet, and your hook. The easiest way to thread this on is take the eyelet, kind of spread the skirt out a little bit, insert that eyelet first into the tube, just kind of bring it over the top. Work it down over the head of work it over the jig head there until it's pretty flush with the top, and pull the skirt down. Just put a little bit of pressure on top of that eyelet with your finger, kind of back and forth, and your eyelet will pop right through. For this combination, I also like the Palomar knot. Let's go ahead and retie it. I'll do it kind of fast. I will put a template picture on the site so you guys can see what I tie. I tie this. This is my favorite go-to knot. It's by far the easiest. So you're going to take that running end through the eyelet, bring it back through the eyelet opposite the way you came before. Give yourself about 10 or 11 inches to work with. Pull everything tight. Keep the bait in the middle. Your overhand knot. The loop on the working end. Bring your bait through. And pull everything tight. Once again, clipping off that tag line about 1/8 of an inch away from the eyelet. So there you have it. That's your basic artificial setup. Primarily, this is a great bait for crappie and bluegill, panfish, depending on where you're at. The little bass, even the bigger bass, sometimes won't hesitate to hit this. Also, it's got to hold on a little bit tighter, and this will actually occasionally catch a catfish or two. Once again, I think we're going to call it an evening. Thanks for liking the page. If you have any questions, please let me know. If there's something that you'd like to see, let me know. If there's something you can suggest, if the lighting's bad, the sound's bad, please let me know kindly also. So thanks again. Have a good night and good fishing.